Okay, alright, so now we're going to play around with Gimp a little bit and start, kind of give you guys a little bit of a rundown on building some tile set stuff. And this will also be the location where we are going to use to create all of our animations, all of our characters. So we already know that our characters, our tiles, everything's going to be in terms of 16 by 16 for our pixel art. So for a tile set, we don't need a super huge canvas. So I have this set as 200 by 200 pixels. You want to go into your advanced options and you want to make sure that it's filled with transparency. Okay, so it should now give a checkerboard grid. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. So let's go to 1600. Okay, I can change preferences. If I go to edit, I can change my preferences. The grid, we can actually change on what the size of that grid is. If your theme seems a little bit dark, you could go to your interface and then theme, and you can change. I have mine as light icon theme, so that's all my buttons here. I have them set as color. You can change them to what you want. And if you right click, that gives you usually some other options. You can adjust the transparency. So you could have, say, bigger checker boxes if you wanted. Not real crucial. Okay, so anyway, so you have this set up. Now, let's say you want to do a grid for it so you can keep everything. Let's do configure grid. And then once this comes up, you can choose your spacing. So say 16 by 16 pixels. I hit OK. It still may not show up. I could go into, there's two places, edit, and I can make sure that grid is shown. And I can also go to view, and I can click show grid. View, snap to grid. If I want that grid to, let's go to, I want that grid to be white. I can change the foreground color for that too. Okay, so now I have a set of squares. I can see these. Now, what we want to do is, trying to give me paper towel. We want to make a selection, and for a good tile set, shut that off. A good tile set, you want to do squares that are 9 by 9. So here is one tile set. So let's say that that's going to be my water. Okay, now that I have that selected, I could go ahead and pick a color and then fill it. So now I have my background color. And what we want to do is we want to make it so that if I put any tile next to each other, I'm going to have a repeating edge. Okay? There's a couple different ways to do it. The easiest way that I find is this corner piece. I'm going to match up these edges right here to these squares. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this corner all the way over here and swap it with this one after I've done the same thing. Same with this smaller tile, subtile. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bump it up here, take this tile, and swap it over here. So then all of the edge tiles are going to match up with the counterpart. Then when you're drawing, it's a lot easier to have everything match up really well. And you'll have it look like it's just naturally repeating instead of having random tiles. So let's go to our color, and we want to bump up. For water, we have a little bit lighter color. Let's make it a little bit more blue. And we're just going to pen that in. So if I click on the pencil, I want to make sure that my size is 1 pixel or pretty close to it. So I'm just going to start drawing something, keeping in mind that I'm basically just trying to match up these tiles, knowing that I'm going to swap and have the other edges match. So let's say I'm doing some type of water pattern. Okay. Now I may end up layering some more things, but we know we're going to want to have white for maybe the breaking of the waves. Okay, and you're going to end up having to play around with this. It's going to take a while to get something that you like. I am not in any stretch of the word an artist. Okay, so after you have that, you have a couple of those pieces. Well, we probably want something a little bit darker. So we could use our color picker tool, and let's mark that color, and then let's get one darker than that. So we have about 3-4 colors. And I'm going to want to have this be underneath. Oops. I was still in the color picker tool. So we got that. We go to our pen. Alright, so we have some of our water breaking. So let's say that we're going to do something with this. Now keep in mind that we are zoomed way in. So to get an idea of what this would kind of look like, we could bump this out to, let's say, about 200, 400. That's going to be kind of what it looks like. So it'd probably be a little bit bigger. Let's go to 400. So little inconsistencies, things that you see when you're at 1600. As you zoom, you're not going to notice as much. So I'm going to start moving some stuff around. So I'm going to select this square. Oops. Select that square. I may have to drag it some. Alright, so I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to select my move tool. Cut that. And then I'm going to paste. But now I want to move it. So I want to move it over, just out of the way. And then I'm going to go back here. I'm going to select. So it may, if you have a floating selection, you're just going to want to anchor the floating layer so that it's all in one layer. And then we can go back and we could select another one. So I'm going to go and copy this, cut that, and paste it here. And now I'm going to use my move tool again, and I'm going to move it up there. I'm not rotating or anything. So what let's anchor is that these no longer match up. Okay, and this one doesn't match up. So I'm going to need to fix those squares. Okay, so I need to fix those squares. So I want to start using my color picker, getting those colors, going to my pen tool, and joining the lines. So they don't have to be exact, the same, or anything like that. So I get the other color, I join it up. Okay, so now I have, it's not breaking. This, I got the same thing. I need to fix that line. Color picker again. And I'm going to finish that line out. Okay, So I moved those 2 tiles. Now I can do these 2 tiles. So doing the same thing, I'm going to copy this square, cut it out. I'm going to paste it somewhere else because I know that I'm going to move the other one. Anchor it. Select this one and move that one. Cut it, paste it, move it. Anchor. Image. Or select. None. Okay. So anchor. So now I have to join these 2 lines up. So let's say that I got my blue already. I want it to actually stop right there. But now I have it lined up. Now I have that lighter color that's going. Here I have the color. Maybe I'm going to have this come down. We'll do this one too. Use our color picker. This is a tedious thing to do. I'm not going to say that this is super easy. It's not difficult, but it will take time to get something that you're wanting. So there's that color. Let's have it break. We have another one here. Connect that line up. Alright, so those look pretty good. I think we could work with that. Maybe we should do the white. Okay, now we just need to pick the other 2 to swap. We're going to keep doing this until we get all of them swapped. Then they will line up in almost any position. So the next thing that I would do, so after I have them all swapped, I am going to want to use the eraser tool. And I want it to have not a hard edge. I want it to be incremental. Okay. I'm going to bump it up some. So something like that where I'm taking about half of the tile. And the reason why I want to do this is I want to introduce some transparency at the edges of my tiles. So if after I'm all done swapping and matching, I'm going to introduce some transparency so that if I put this water on top of, say, grass or sand, it is not an abrupt change, it's gradual. So that might even be too much. So let's undo that, Control Z. I want it to be a lot lighter. That's still too much. You just have to play around with the controls. When we're doing our tiles, this will blend in a lot better because if you look at the edges, it's not a perfect erase, and that's what we're going for. So you want to do the same thing. These 9 tiles right here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go to my image, make sure I don't have anything selected. I'm going to check the next 9 squares. Okay. Don't think that did that. I'm going to check my next 9 squares. I'm going to jump into doing dirt or sand and start drawing out. Start with the base layer, add a few colors, and then start swapping the tiles so you get a good, not super obvious pattern, but when we look at it at, say, 400 pixels, you know, it looks a lot more different. Doesn't look as bad, will blend in a lot better. And the better that you do for introducing shadows and gradient colors will make your tiles look better. So spending good time on your background tiles will help you. Okay, so after you get that, you get your different tile sets for the grounds. Then you're going to want to start adding things like trees and different things. So let's say we're going to go add, you know, a tree. You might want to have a couple different types of trees. So let's go to my select. I'm going to go none. But I'm saying, hey, my tree that I'm going to do is going to be approximately 2 squares big. Okay. And say this top one is mostly my foliage, the leaves and stuff. And then here's my trunk. So I could start doing my colors and then just kind of getting a good outline. Once you start building this in your tile editor, you can have them reverse each other and things like that. So let's say that I start with a brown. I'll find a decent brown. Okay. So I could start kind of drawing out. Again, we're going to want to bump this down. This is going to be my trunk. So I'm going to work on my trunk, making sure that it's staying mostly in that square. And with this, with Tiled Editor, I can have where I'm walking behind the leaves, but in front of the branch. If I keep it separated, and it will look a lot better. So now that I got some of that, we can go to, say, like a lighter color. And I want to have more of this in there. Again, this is kind of depending on how you're doing your world. I'm just giving you an idea. We don't have to spend a lot of money to make a video game, but it is going to take a lot of work. Alright, so now I want just going to kind of draw it in. So GIMP, once you play around with it, and there are a lot of YouTube videos that you guys can go to get ideas of how to do things. From even doing those repeat tile maps, you can have add modules to this to do different things. It's really kind of up to you. So now maybe I'm going to add, let's say, a little bit of green, and this is going to be, you know, kind of the tufts of grass. Okay. If I look at this at 400, that really doesn't look too bad. You're just going to have to play around with it. My tile sets, that did take me quite a few days to draw them up and have them look like something that I wanted. Now I may, to not have this abrupt, I may erase part of the edge of the trunk so that I feel that it blends better in with the ground. Same with my foliage, the leaves. I may end up erasing a little bit of the leaves so that it looks like it is blending better. And since I'm doing that, I could probably just use my airbrush and just start spraying. I'll have to bump up the size. Start drawing this in. Remember, I want to try to keep it up as much as I can separated to just a square. So I start having a good color. Now I'm going to put some lighter colors. I want to try to give it some depth. And knowing that there is probably going to be some shadow in my game, maybe I'm going to add a little bit of shadow. So I want a really dark one. Maybe that's going to be with my paintbrush. So I'll introduce it somewhere around there. Oops. Control Z. Okay. And you're really just going to keep playing around with it. Getting those colors how you want, adjusting it. And if you don't like the colors, you can always just undo. Alright, so let's see kind of what it looks like when we're shorter. So that's not too bad. So that's an idea what you can do. Like in my game, Redbeard Run, we had tombstones, I had caves, I had smaller plants. But because it's a tile set, we don't have to just limit it to that. So anything that you want to see in your world, even to if you have, say, where you're breaking the plants and you need it to change the look of the plant, like it's cut down so you can destroy stuff in your world. You want to think of what you want to do and then fit it in this space. So you have 200 by 200 pixels. That's quite a bit. Remember to keep your stuff scaled correctly. You don't want to scale it too far up and then not be able to do it. Okay, so work on doing your tiles for your ground and for introducing other things based off of your game design document, the type of environment, the theme that you have, so it's staying consistent. Okay.